What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Manny here. Welcome back to another video from the beautiful balcony. This time about a frequently asked question, and that is left-right imbalance. So a difference in power between your left arm and your right arm, which is of course quite relevant when it comes to climbing performance, right? So apparently, because this is a very frequently asked question, it is a very common problem, right? I remember watching a video where Magnus Midtbo made the lattice test, and during this test they also measured his finger strength of both arms separately, right? So they measured his right arm, they hang him on a certain edge with a bit of bonus weight, I think, and they measured how long he could hang on there, and then they measured his left arm and noted a significant difference in power. And he then, Magnus Midtbo himself, said afterwards that he actually carries 1 kilogram more mass in his right arm than in his left arm, and he knows this via a DEXA scan. So this is quite an astonishing difference, right? So obviously also the real pro dudes have this kind of phenomenon. And also in my case, I can say that back in the day when I was training with a really simplistic setup with a really good measurable factor in it, you know, I had always the same edge, I had always the same scale, and I simply pulled weight off that scale with that edge. And back in that setup with my own self-made hangboard, I already noticed that on average my right hand would be about 6 kilograms stronger, actually 6 to even 8 kilograms stronger during a session than my left arm. And this is quite an astonishing difference. So also I have the experience with the subject. If I would have to quantify this difference, I mean 6 kilograms, if I would imagine my right arm to be even 6 kilograms stronger, this could be definitely a grade, right? If I also imagine that that my body would be 6 kilograms lighter, this is definitely a grade, man, okay? Maybe even more. So we're definitely talking about 1 grade of a difference, maybe even more, between my right arm and my left arm. So we could say if my left arm was as strong as my right arm, I could probably climb more problems in that certain limit grade of mine, because I'm not selected by all of these, you know, the problems which happen to tackle the left arm more are not filtering me out as much as they do now, right? Of course, we do not really notice that because we just for some reason cannot climb the problem then, right? But whether that's because actually we have a left-right arm imbalance, well, it could be, if it is so significant at least. So let's talk a bit about potential causes for this phenomenon. First of all, we have to talk about genetics here. Usually a person is either right-handed or left-handed. We can't really do anything about that, right? So probably there's going to be a difference in power and also a difference in coordinative ability when it comes to these two, when it comes to the handedness in general, right? We can't really do anything about that, so it's kind of a sad point to make, but of course it is relevant. And the second point is injury. Injury is a really big thing here. In my case, it is probably rather the injury that is holding me back, that is holding my left arm more back than my right arm. When I was injured in my climbing career, it was usually the left arm. In the right arm, I only had minor stuff, maybe a finger here and there, you know, some finger pulley or stuff like that. In my left arm, it was first of all the elbow, which I still have to some degree. I have this injury for like, it's I don't know, it's a golfer elbow tendonitis, so a little bit of inflammation in here, right? So I have this injury since, I don't know, maybe 3 years or something, which I've talked about previously in the past. A lot of times it's getting better and better, but to the point where it's completely healed. I can still feel it if I'm going 110% during my training and on limit projects, right? So it's still there. Now the thing is, it did get better, and this actually reduced the difference between my right arm and my left arm a little bit, and I'm going to talk about that later. So yeah, definitely injury. My left arm is simply more prone to injury, not only in the elbow but also in the fingers. I'm going to try to show you a close-up of this. When I was in high school, I played basketball quite a lot, and actually the basketball hit my fingers in a straight frontal way like 2 times or something, which resulted in extreme swelling of the middle finger joint here. this middle joint there. And also nowadays my middle finger is a little bit longer, my left middle finger, than my right middle finger. And my joint, the joint of my left middle finger is a little bit bigger and thicker than one of my right. So this is probably not very helpful when it comes to climbing injury prevention, right? Where we crimp a lot of stuff with these fingers and whatnot. And in fact, also this finger during my climbing career had significantly more, let's call it, adaptation phases than my right finger, okay? Where things got a little bit sore, they got a little bit inflamed, swollen a little bit. So these tendons here, they underwent a lot of process, so to say, a lot of adaptation to this climbing stimulus. So here we see that injury can also be a reason for this left-right imbalance, yeah? So quite often actually I have the feeling. And then there is the third point, which is probably the most interesting one, and that is the way we train. Another phenomenon that I've talked in the past quite a lot is what I would call the easy left one-armer syndrome. And what I mean with that is that usually, funnily enough, if people are right-handed, they have quite significantly more grip strength in the right hand. In my case, it's 6 kilograms, as I've talked before, difference. But funnily enough, the left hand, the left arm rather, is significantly stronger when it comes to one arm lock-off power, or lock-off power in general, or whatever you want to call it. So in the time when I trained one-armers on a jog, which is quite pointless, but anyway, I've talked about that as well. I trained one-armers. I wanted to be able to do a one-armer, and also beyond one-armer, I wanted to see how many one-armers I could do on one arm. And I think at my strongest point, I got up to 4 one-armers in a row on a bar, but I only could do that with my left arm. Right? With my right arm, I never reached that level. I stalled out with my right arm, I think, at that period with 3 one-armers. So that's funny. And also, my first one-armer that I ever did was on my left arm. Okay, I already could do a one-armer on my left arm when I still couldn't do it on my right arm. Although my right arm is significantly stronger when it comes to grip strength, and it already was significantly stronger in terms of grip strength back then. So that's a fascinating phenomenon. And I tried to explain it via the following mechanism. It is with these very gym-oriented climbers, which I was back then myself, who always, they make themselves problems, right? They invent problems for themselves, let's say on a 45er setting, a 45er system wall, 45-degree overhang, where you have to invent your own problems, where people usually train, in a training setup. And it just so happens that because you already are right-handed from the beginning, due to your genetics, you tend to set problems where the coordinative and contact strength factor rather goes to the right hand, and therefore obviously the locking off and pulling towards these holds factor goes to the left hand, right? So without us noticing, when we invent ourselves problems and we are right-handed, we lock off a little bit more often with the left hand, and we contact strength and grip hard on our target holds a little bit more with our right hand. This is how I try to explain this phenomenon, that although we are right-handed, the left hand is significantly stronger with locking off. It could also be something completely different, so don't quote me on that. I don't have any proof for this, but I know that this syndrome is quite common with a lot of climbers, actually, okay? So a lot of climbers are significantly stronger in one hand with the grip, and on the other hand with the lock-off. So probably there's something to this kind of stuff, right? And this is interesting because if that was true, we could say that a pure outdoorer, someone who never visited the gym and never had to invent his own problems, someone who just did outdoor climbing, he shouldn't have this phenomenon, right? Because on average, all outdoor problems which are not man-made should even out. So it could be interesting. Leave me a comment, or by the way, leave me a like down below as well for this video. People really don't like my videos enough. I don't know. Maybe I have to always say, oh, like the video. I'm not gonna do that, of course, because that's not cool. But Leave a like down below and leave me a comment if you're a pure outdoor climber, whether you have the so-called the easy left one-armer syndrome as well. Okay, so yeah. Now that we've discussed all the potential causes for this phenomenon, which is genetics, then the injuries, and of course the way we train, let's discuss a little bit the potential fixes. So we're gonna flip our page over there, one-handed. Luckily I'm right-handed. Genetics we can't really fix, right? So that's a dead end. You won't become both-handed at some day. What is about injury? Well, injury, you could heal the injury. And here's another interesting experience of mine that I had with that. I talked about the injury in my left elbow, the elbow tendonitis. Always when I trained really, really hard and wanted to push my limits, I wanted to push my numbers, this thing came back and somehow limited my progress, right? So I had to stop essentially with the fingerboard training or campus board training or whatever I was doing back in that time. And now, since it has gotten a lot better, the injury is probably just simply because I already have it for such a long time, right? And at some point, this stuff just heals. This is also what I'm telling everybody who always asks me about injury all the time. These things take surprisingly a lot of time, okay? It's just crazy amount of time. Sometimes you have these injuries for 5 years and then they slowly go away. So you gotta be really patient, stay below pain threshold, always test things out again, right? And don't ruin it completely. Don't throw yourself back a year or something like that. But keep it active and try to climb it away. And sometimes it takes years. But anyway, different subject. Since the elbow got better, the performance difference actually went from 6 to 8 kilograms to only 4 kilograms. And this I measured on my more recent setup with the Beastmaker, right? When I was doing assisted one-armers on the small Beastmaker edge, also on the middle Beastmaker edge, there I noticed that the difference is only 4 kilograms anymore, and also with pure hangs. So we're not talking only about hanging and pulling a one-armer there, but also just pure hanging. Very comparable to what I did in the past, where I measured my first initial power difference. So definitely healing injuries up, healing old injuries, if they were the cause for the power difference, then it's of course helpful to just simply heal the injury, and probably you can even out your hands there a little bit. And then we come to the point where we talk about the way we train, right? Can we even out the power difference in arms via training? Can we rebalance our arms via training? I would say if the reason for your imbalance is very genetically oriented, genetically caused, then probably no. Not a lot, at least. What we could do, and this is actually a thought that I had quite a while ago, back in my very, very early climbing days, I already thought, when I was training on the 45-degree overhanging wall in my old gym, how cool would it be to have just the same wall, but mirrored, right? A symmetrical 45-degree wall, so that every problem you can send on one wall, you can repeat on the other wall, but in a symmetric way, in a mirrored way, so that all the crux moves which would usually be hard for the right hand on the one wall would then be hard for the left hand. And then the guys from Moonboard, who are really smart, came up with a Moonboard setup, actually, I think, which is mirrored, which is symmetrical. So this is, of course, a really cool tool. Not only because you're finally able to attack your right and left hand equally, but you're also finally able to detect your weaknesses, right? To detect your left and right power differences, because maybe it's not just your finger strength, maybe it's also your core, and you're noticing that all of a sudden your left foot always slips on the one side but it doesn't on the other side, which could indicate that also your left foot is a little bit weaker, or that you just have a little bit weaker core connection to your left foot, right? And all these kind of things. So unfortunately, I so far didn't have the opportunity to train on such a symmetrical 45er system wall or the Moonboard, which would be really cool. But I imagine this could be a really effective strategy to tackle your left-right imbalance. Another possibility, and with this I actually have a little bit more experience, is that we just neglect the strong side a little bit more during our hangboarding and campusing, and focusing on the weak side a little bit more. The problem is, as I've said before, if your imbalance is injury caused, as it probably is the case with me, at least to some degree, then you're gonna stall out super quickly on the injured arm, right? Because when you're focusing on the weak injured arm, then the injury is probably gonna come back pretty soon, pretty quickly, right? So then you have to even things out again, okay? And you have to go with your non-injured arm as well. Also, it's very hard psychologically, in my experience, to always only focus on one arm more than on the other. Because you want to see your best numbers, right? Let's be honest here. If you're training and you're measuring your progress, you always want to see your best numbers, and it's also a really motivating and cool feeling to push your best numbers, to make new personal bests. And for that, you just simply gonna need your strong arm, right? You won't push your best numbers on your left hand. I mean, you could push your personal left best numbers, which is also good, of course, but you want to see those best numbers, so it's really hard psychologically to do that. I tried it in the past, and again, I was very often just limited then by this elbow tendonitis to go further. So probably the best way is to simply heal the injury and then try to even things out. My friends, I think that's about all I have to say about the subject. Let me know your experiences down below, please. That would be really interesting. And don't forget, if you're a pure outdoor climber, are you also suffering from the easy left hand one-armer syndrome? That would be really interesting as well. Leave me a like if you enjoyed the episode. That's always appreciated. And I'll see you soon in the next one, hopefully under the beautiful sun of Greece again. Bye.